There are battles to be fought in silence. They are not seen in the gestures nor in the words, but they burn inside like a fire uncontrollable. Maybe you know that fight. The one that happens when nobody is watching you. The one that is fought in it deeper in your mind and your flesh. Lust, desire, shame. Many they believe that fighting with, that is a sign of spiritual defeat. Falling over and over again only demonstrates how you are far from God. But what if it were the other way around? What if that constant struggle is not evidence of your condemnation, but a sign of your called? What if the enemy attacks you with such force because he knows what you could become if you discovered who are you in God? There's a phrase that can completely change your perspective. Listen to it. Good. My struggle is not my shame. It is the trace of a purpose that I still do not understand. If you have faith, if you believe that God has a purpose for your life, I invite you to comment on this phrase below. Write it as a declaration, as a challenge, as a testimony, and please don't close this video. What you are about to hear can redefine the way you see your fight. Stay until the end. If you believe in God, if still have hope, leave your like now same. Not for me, but as an act of faith, as a symbol that you are willing to look at your battle with others' eyes. What comes next? I could open your eyes spiritual. When we think about Apostle Paul, we think of strength, faith, authority. A man who wrote much of the New Testament, which faced prisons, floggings, shipwrecks, and he didn't back down. But there's something else, something intimate, something that almost nobody wants to look. Paul spoke of a thorn in the flesh, a struggle so intense that he prayed 3 times for God to take it away. And God did. Many they have debated what that sting was. But the important thing is not the exact nature of the struggle, but what it reveals, that even great men of God face internal storms. Can you imagine Paul, that spiritual giant, pleading for relief and receiving in reply, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness"? That doesn't sound like abandonment. It sounds like divine strategy. God's grace doesn't always eliminate the problem. Sometimes he uses it as a tool to shape the character, to maintain his humble heart, to remember that without we are dust. What if that same pattern repeats itself with you? What if your sting is not a punishment, but a platform for God's power to manifest in you? You are not alone. You are in good company. The Bible is not a book of perfect people. It is a map of souls in conflict, a record of men and women who were touched by God. And still, they fell, they fought, they cried, they got up. David, the shepherd poet who killed giants but couldn't resist a woman bathing in the rooftop, fell in lust, then in deception, then in murder, and yet it was called a man after God's own heart. Contradiction, no. Mercy. Then there is Joseph, tempted day after day for his master's wife, alone, young, vulnerable, and yet he ran away. Not because he didn't feel wish, but because I knew that his purpose was greater than that moment. And Samson, anointed from the belly, powerful like few others, but broken inside. His weakness for women, it led to the ruin, but also was an instrument of justice in his last moments. God never withdrew his hand, even when his hair and its strength, were removed. Paul, as we have already seen, confessed a sting. Don't do it, hid it, used as testimony. The pattern is clear. Those who have a great destiny, they face great temptations. They are not coincidences. They are spiritual warfare zones. The enemy doesn't waste resources. He attacks where it does the most damage, where more purpose can be born. If you are being attacked in your sexuality, in your identity, in your emotions, perhaps that is because that is where your most divine assignment lies. Have you ever wondered why some wishes are so persistent? Why does that specific area of your life always seem under attack? The answer is brutally clear. The temptation is not random, it is strategic. The enemy does not lose time tempting those who do not represent a threat. He attacks where there is seed of impact, where there is potential for transformation. If your fight is with the lust, it's not just about sex. It's about intimacy, connection, identity. It's because your life could bring freedom to others, purity and half from chaos, clarity where there is confusion. Look carefully at your battlefield. There same your eldest son could be buried spiritual treasure. That's why Jesus, he was tempted just after being baptized, not before, not when he was a child. He was tempted after the darling he spoke and declared, "This is my beloved son, in whom I have complacency." Hell reacts when heaven affirms. And you, what part of you has been affirmed by God and therefore same is constantly attacked? Pause, reflect. Perhaps your greatest pain is not an accident, but a clue. We live in a culture that seeks immediate solutions. We want the pain disappear, that the fighting ceases, that the problem is eliminated at its root. But God does not always work this way. Sometimes, instead of removing the obstacle, he decides to transform it. Let's go back to Paul. 3 times asked that the sting you was removed. 3 times received the same divine response. My grace is sufficient for you. Why? Because God's purpose was not to relieve their discomfort, but to perfect his character. What if God is allowing your fight does not stop destroy you, but to forge something eternal in you? Romans 8:28-29 reminds us that all things work together for good, but the text doesn't end there. Good, according to God, is not simply relief. It is to be conformed to the image of his Son, your fight. It may be the workshop where your dependency is shaped, the place where they die, he pride, and the self-sufficiency, the scenario where the grace is not just an idea, but a living experience. God can redeem your weakness and convert it in testimony, not because you ignore your battle, but because you learn to walk with she, without her defining you. Not everything that doesn't disappear is a curse. Sometimes it's a holy tool. The struggle is not the end. It can be the beginning of something deeper, truer, more powerful. But for that, it is not enough to resist. You have to respond. And there is 4 ways that can change your inner war. 1. Recognize the strategic temptation. Ask yourself, what part of my purpose is being attacked right now? Lust. It may be a sign that you were created to set others free, to minister healing, to live a deep and holy intimacy. Identify the pattern, because where there is fire, usually have buried gold. 2. Transform the shame in sacred consciousness. Stop hiding. Shame only grows in the darkness. When you confess, you name him, you take away his power. That struggle doesn't disqualify you. It humanizes you. And God doesn't work with masks. He works with real. 3. Use your weakness as a weapon. Your story can be key to the freedom from others. 2 Corinthians 1:4 says, we are comforted to comfort. Your testimony, even with scars, can be a beacon for someone lost. 4. Discipline with grace. This isn't just willpower. It's grace. Active. Pray. Read. Serve, but not as punishment, but as communion. Don't fight to please God. Fight because you know you are already loved by him. These answers do not eliminate the fight, but they allow you walk on it instead of being buried by it. That what would happen if you started to see your struggle not as a punishment, but as evidence of closeness. Many they think that fighting with lust, with thoughts dark or intense desires, it is a sign that they are moving away from God. But the true can be completely opposite. You fight because you are in movement. You fight because the Spirit is at work. You struggle because there is something in you that the enemy wants to destroy before it blooms. Sin isn't just a fall. Sometimes it's a battle for identity. And if you're struggling, if you keep going resisting, if every day you return to the Father, that's not weakness, that's faith in action. God does not seek perfection, seek hearts willing. And there is nothing more powerful than a broken soul that refuses to give up. The next time you feel the load, look at it differently. It could be that you are in the threshold of something big. It could be that your biggest struggle is, in reality, the proof that you are being molded for your elderly mission. We've reached the end, but your process is just beginning. Now you know, your struggle is not a sign of divine abandonment. It is a sacred imprint, an echo of the sky that calls you to wake up, to look beyond of the desire and discover the purpose behind the battle. You are not dirty. You are not broken. You are being molded. Today, want to invite you to do something different. Don't just pray, God, deliver me from this struggle. Pray like this: God, show me the purpose behind this fight. And when it listen, write it down, record it, treasure it. Because what he reveals can change your story. Snapword talk to you, leave your like now, same. And he comments below, my struggle has a purpose. Do it as an act of faith, as a battle cry, as a declaration of identity. And share this video with someone who also needs hear this.